Salvete omnes. Today we will be learning from Chapter 2 of Wheelock, which includes first declension nouns and adjectives, prepositions, conjunctions, and interjections. As I'm sure you all know, a noun is a person, place, or thing. As you learned in Chapter 1, the endings of verbs change to indicate its person, tense, and number. Because Latin is an inflected language, just like verbs, nouns have endings that are changed to reflect the different grammatical functions that the noun can perform. The inflected forms of nouns are called cases. There are 6 cases in Latin. The 5 main cases are the nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, and ablative. There is also a 6th case that is not seen as often but is super easy. In the next couple of slides, we will go over what grammatical functions each of these noun cases signify. In order to do this, we will use these 3 sample English sentences. The nominative case indicates the subject of the sentence. The subject is the noun that is performing the action of the verb. In sentence A, the subject is the girl. In sentence B, the subject is the survivors. What is the subject of sentence C? If you guessed bodies, you are correct. Therefore, the girl in sentence A would be in the nominative singular. The survivors in sentence B would be nominative plural, as well as bodies in sentence C. The genitive case is used when one noun modifies another. However, the vast majority of instances, the genitive case is used to show possession. In English, possession is usually indicated by the phrase of or s. Of our example sentences, which ones have the genitive case? If you said B and C, you are correct. In sentence B, the hospital has possession over the medicines. They are the medicines of the hospital, meaning hospital would be in the genitive singular. In sentence C, the survivors have possession over the bodies of the survivors, meaning that the survivors would be in the genitive plural. Because the genitive does show possession, it is most commonly translated as of the noun. The dative case marks nouns that are indirectly affected by the verb. This is usually the indirect object. A good way to remember how to use the dative case has to do with gift giving. The word dative comes from the Latin word that means to give. Thus, you give a gift to somebody. Somebody would be in the dative case because it is indirectly affected by the verb. Which of our sample sentences has the dative case in it? If you guessed A and B, you are correct. In sentence A, the girl is giving the head wound to the zombie. Zombie would be dative singular. In sentence B, the survivors are giving the hospital's medicines to the wounded. The wounded would be dative plural. The dative case is usually translated as to the noun or for the noun. The accusative case is used to indicate a noun that is directly affected by the verb. That is, the direct object. The subject performs the action of the verb, whereas the direct object receives the action of the verb. Only 2 of our sample sentences have direct objects. Which sentences are these? If you answered A and B, you are correct. In A, traumatic head wound is receiving the action of the verb and would be accusative singular. In B, medicines are receiving the action of the verb and would be in the accusative plural case. The ablative case handles most, but not all, of Latin's prepositions. Prepositions are words that govern and usually precede a noun or pronoun and express a relation to another word or element in the clause. English prepositions include in, on, below, behind, etc. The ablative can also be used without a preposition, and in this case, it is used to show the means or instrument through which an action is being performed. Therefore, when used without a preposition, it is usually translated as with the noun, or by the noun, or from the noun. In our example sentences, there are no ablatives without a preposition. However, one sentence does use a preposition, and that is sentence C, without food. It's a prepositional phrase. Therefore, the preposition meaning without in the ablative form of food would be used. Now I want to just talk a little bit about how prepositions work in Latin. Some prepositions are built into how you translate a case, such as of for the genitive, for the dative, and with for the ablative. A lot of time, the Latin text will give you the preposition. But in many cases, you will see an ablative noun with no preposition, and you'll have to decide what preposition needs to be supplied. This is another case where context is helpful. You will continually be learning new preposition rules, so don't worry too much about them for now. Except this one. The ablative case handles most prepositions, but when the sense indicated is one thing going towards another, the noun shows up in the accusative. For example, in the sentence, the girl is in the gate would be ablative. In the sentence, the girl goes into the gate would be accusative. The final case which we're going to learn today is the vocative case. As I mentioned before, it's not very common since it's only used for direct address. That is, when you call out the sentence's subject, often by name. It's usually very easy to recognize because it is accompanied with the introduction "oh." The vocative case almost always has the same form as the nominative case. Almost always. As you can see from the examples on the screen, nouns in the vocative case also tend to accompany imperative verbs, though yet again, this is not always the case. To form a noun in every case is to decline a noun, just like to conjugate a verb is to form the verb in every given tense. A declension is a list of all the cases of a noun or adjective. There are 5 declensions in total, but today we are only concerned with the first declension. Nouns have genders in Latin, just like they do in English, and for the most part, nouns in the first declension are feminine, with a few notable exceptions. We'll get into these exceptions in a minute. On this slide, you can see the noun endings for the first declension. As with verbs, nouns can be both singular and plural. It is very important to memorize these endings. Flashcards can help, and so can this little trick. If you know Lady Gaga's song Bad Romance, these endings fit perfectly into the rah rah ah 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 part at the beginning. I would sing it for you all, but you really don't want to hear that. To decline a noun, you first find the noun's base and add endings to the base form. To find a noun's base, simply take the ending off the genitive singular form. The genitive singular form of a noun is always the second piece of the dictionary entry. As you can see from the example on your screen, the first part of the dictionary entry for a noun is its nominative singular. The second part is the genitive singular. The third part is the gender of the noun, and the fourth part is its definition. Thus, the base for porta is port. On your screen now, you can see the declension of porta, portae. The nominative singular is porta, the genitive singular is portae, the dative singular is portae, the accusative singular is portam, the ablative singular is porta with a long A at the end, and the vocative singular is porta. The nominative plural is portae, the genitive plural is portarum, the dative plural is portis, the accusative plural is portas, and the ablative plural is portis. The vocative plural is, of course, portae. As you can see, some forms are the same as each other. You will have to use context clues to help you figure out what case the noun is in. This chapter also introduces first declension adjectives. Adjectives decline exactly like nouns and must match their noun in gender, case, and number. You can see an example of this on your screen. Now, as I mentioned before, for the most part, nouns of the first declension are feminine. There are also a few exceptions to this rule, which are poeta, nauta, and agricola. These nouns appear to be feminine, and in fact decline in the first declension. However, they are masculine in meaning, which means any adjective that accompanies them must be masculine. You will learn the masculine declension, or second declension, later this week. Finally, let's talk a little bit about conjunctions and interjections. Conjunctions connect 2 or more elements, such as 2 nouns and 2 clauses. They can be classified into coordinating conjunctions, which connect equivalent elements, me laudamus et monemus, or subordinating conjunctions, which connect a subordinate clause with the main clause. See arrow monet may. We already talked a little bit about interjections when talking about the vocative case, but I'll quickly go over what they are again. An interjection is an exclamatory word thrown into a sentence. It expresses some sort of emotion, like fear when you say, "Ah, zombies." It usually accompanies the vocative. Now there are two things concerning your homework I would like to discuss. This is the first week where I'll be assigning you all a sentence to parse and translate in the forum. On your screen, you can see my expectations for this assignment. First, I want you to copy the Latin sentence. Don't worry about adding those long marks if you don't know how. Then I want all the information you can give me for each word as well as its function in the sentence. Finally, I want the best English translation you can give me. Finally, each video, I will give you a little information about the author of the passage on your worksheet, or important figures in these passages. This week's passage was written by Catullus, or Gaius Valerius Catullus is his full Latin name. Catullus lived between 84 and 54 BC, and was a Latin poet of the Roman Republic. He was one of the first poets to write about his personal life rather than classical heroes in his poetry. This new style of poetry was called Neoteric. Catullus was a great influence on the later Augustan poets Ovid, Horace, and Virgil. He is well known for his explicit writing style. If you want a good example of this, check out Catullus 16. Alright, that's all for today. Your homework so far this week is to start working on the worksheet for Chapter 2. I will assign the forum sentence via an announcement on Wednesday. Valete omne.